Loops are really popular in lots of programming languages, and JavaScript is no exception. In this next few videos, we'll be looking at for loops, while loops, and do while loops. So don't worry if this is unfamiliar. We'll take a look at exactly how each one works, starting with the while loop in this video. And loops can be really useful, and it can save us a lot of repetitive typing. So let's get started with its own folder. And this is number 7, and we'll call this one while loops. So let's open it up in brackets and drag that in. And rename this while loops. And then we can get rid of all this from the last video. And also all the HTML below. So let's start with a basic while loop. So we use the while keyword, and then the brackets, and then the curly braces. So this might start to look a bit familiar to you. This is basically the same kind of layout as the switch statements and the if-else statements that we've looked at previously. So hopefully this shouldn't be too unfamiliar. And the brackets afterwards also work in the same way as if statements, as in we pass a condition into the brackets, and while this condition is true, and then we run some code in between, and this code keeps looping or repeating until this condition is no longer met. So while this is true, we need to do this, or whatever's in between the braces. So let's put a basic example inside this while loop. And to begin, we're going to need to create a variable. And this variable I'm going to call I, which is a pretty common variable name for using with a loop, but you can call it anything you want. So I'm going to set the initial value of I to be equal to 1. So while I is less than 10, we want to do something inside the braces. So let's just keep it simple with a document write. And we want to write to the browser the value of I every time we loop. And then just so the value of I appears on its own line, I'm going to put a break tag inside there, and then I++. Okay, so this might look a little bit strange, but what we're doing is we're setting the value of I to be 1. And then while I is less than the value of 10, which it currently is, we're then going to print to the screen the value of I. So to begin with, number 1 will be printed. And then every time we loop through this code, there'll be I++. So the next time the loop goes round, because we're doing a I++, I will be then set to 2, and then we'll loop round again and print 2, and then this will be incremented again to 3, and this will keep happening until I is less than 10, or in our case we'll get number 9. So we should see on the screen printed number 1 through to number 9. So let's take a look in the browser. Okay, there we go. So we've got the value of 1 to 9, and because we put a break tag in there as well, each one of these values is on their own line. But just one little word of warning when using while loops is it can be quite easy to crash the browser if we don't do them correctly. So if we take the I++ out of there, so every time this while loop runs, the value of I will always be 1. So then we'll create a infinite loop, which will never end, because I will always be less than 10, and this will cause the browser or your program to crash. So be really careful that we increment on each loop. And another popular way of using loops is to loop through an array and then print all the values of that array. So let's show an example of that now. So create an array called foods, and we'll set that in the literal way. So just add some foods inside the array, separated by commas. So pasta, pizza, and fish. And because the index of arrays starts at position 0, I'm just going to change the variable of I to be 0. So if you remember from the array section, we can print the array's value. So let's do a quick document write. And then we can pass in the name of the array. And if we wanted to print an individual item inside the array, we could select the number by its index. So if we wanted to print pasta, that is index 0. I'll just comment this out and then print. So that's how we get the value of an array. But if we wanted to print all the values of the array onto the screen, we would then, let's just uncomment this for now. And because we're using a loop, we want to pass into the loop the index number. So let's just take that out of there, paste that in the brackets, and we don't just want to select position 0, we want to set that to be I, because we want to loop through and increase this by 1 every pass of the loop. And instead of printing the value of I, we want to print the contents of the array. So we want to print the foods, and the foods number is the value of I. So what will happen there is the loop will be run, and the loop will begin with the value of 0, which is pasta. So then we'll print to the screen the value of pasta, and then I will be incremented to 1. So that changes to 1, which is the second index. So that's the value of pizza. So then pizza will be printed to the screen, and then we'll loop around again, and I will be incremented to then be 2, which is fish. So 0, 1, 2. And then fish will be printed to the screen. And then the loop will end because that's all the values of the array. So let's start again with 0, save that, and refresh the browser. There we go, so there's our 3 values of the array, and that's how a while loop works. So thanks for watching, and we'll move on now to the next video, where we'll take a look at a slight variant of the while loop, and this is called the do while loop.